This is a cursed image. It's a cursed painting, to be specific. The Woman of the Rain. I don't know if you've seen it before.
I've never seen it in my life.
The story goes is that this lady, she was constantly having this weird feeling before going to sleep that somebody was just watching over her. And then this one night, she just suddenly got the urge to paint because she was an artist, and it only took her 5 hours to paint that, and that entity kind of possessed her into painting and physically manifesting itself on the painting. She put that painting in the market. It was purchased 3 times.
Okay.
The first was a woman, and she says that she literally couldn't sleep. She felt like as if the painting was alive and it was watching her. Yo, this is giving me the chills, bro. She even tried to hide it, but she just felt like the presence was there.
Oh my gosh, bro.
She ended up returning it back to the artist, got purchased again by another guy, and he said that he felt like a shadow of the woman would walk over him at night, and he kept having nightmares of her. He didn't even want his money back. He just gave it back. And then the third person saying couldn't stand having the painting inside the house, bro. What this reminded me of is in the movie It, there was this scene where one of the boys is scared of this painting, a crooked lady or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then the painting comes to life.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna show you the scene real quick.
Yeah. I forgot how the scene went too. It's been a while since I watched it.
It's 2017.
Oh yeah, 7 years ago.
There was a woman named Nina who was having a terrible day at work. All she could look forward to was seeing her daughter at home when she got off. About an hour before she left work, she called her daughter saying, "I'll be home soon," and to start getting everything ready for dinner. When Nina left work, she felt herself feeling a little better and was excited to cook dinner for her and her daughter. When Nina finally got home, her daughter's smiling face was greeting her in the driveway, but the rest of her body was missing. Nina began screaming in horror and couldn't believe what she was looking at. She then called the police, and when they arrived, they searched the house but couldn't find anything. A manhunt then began for whoever did this. Devastated by her daughter's death, Nina went to her room and tried to fall asleep, hoping it was all a dream. She then woke up in the middle of the night and realized someone else was in her bed. When she turned over to look, her heart stopped beating. It was her daughter's missing body. Nina then got up and tried to run to the phone and call the police, but was suddenly stopped by a man in a mask that said, "Hopefully you don't scream like your daughter."
Survivor man days, but definitely in my days of learning survival and teaching survival. And I went off to the woods. A buddy of mine who ran a company teaching survival, we would go off and we would practice, So we went off to this area in Ontario, Canada called Moon River. No, it is the Moon River. And we went off, going near that in the bush around that area, known for all kinds of like freaky stuff. So we went out there and we were building our shelters, and he was on the other side of a berm and I was on this side looking at the lake sort of thing. And yeah, at about midnight, I heard this just ungodly screaming, but it really sounded, so here's your hyperbole. It sounded like a satanic ritual where women were being tortured. That's what it sounded like, And I went over to my buddy and said, "Doug, can you hear that? He's snoring." He didn't even think. He's on the other side of the berm, right? So he's got a sound barrier. It was starting to snow a bit, and I said, "You can stay. I'm leaving. I'm not staying here, man. There's no freaking way I'm staying here." And so we got up and we left the woods in the middle of the night. And I've never heard anything like that before since. Again, it could have been porcupines, A lot of creatures out there make some pretty freaky sounds. You echo that down through a valley or a canyon, back up through the cliffs, and by the time it gets to your ear, you're listening to a satanic ritual.
It is interesting, though, to me, that you have all these explanations, yet I still feel like there's a little part of you telling that story.
You will not believe the shocking twist in this missing woman's case. Amanda Ella was a 35-year-old yoga instructor from Haiku in Hawaii. She was really into fitness and was a very keen hiker. She regularly went on solo hikes, so it was extremely alarming on the 8th of May when she vanished. Her white Toyota was discovered in the Makaweo Forest Reserve car park. Disturbingly, inside was her wallet and her phone. Why would she leave these items behind? Word spread to the local community that she was missing, and hundreds of volunteers showed up to try and help. They wanted to do anything that they could to assist the officials and Amanda's family. Her devastated parents offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to her discovery. As with most missing persons cases, Amanda's partner was questioned by police. However, it seemed that he just had no idea what was going on. A week went by with no news, and then 2. Still nothing. Finally, after 17 days of searching, a discovery was made. A helicopter spotted Amanda. By some miracle, she was alive, but she wasn't in a good way. She'd intended on just going for a short walk, hence leaving her phone and her wallet behind. However, she had managed to get lost, and in the panic of trying to find her way back to her car, she'd fallen off a cliff. She had fractured her leg, and she'd also suffered severe sunburn. She survived by eating berries and drinking river water, but she was seriously malnourished. She was airlifted to hospital and thankfully recovered.
This woman was recently found stabbed to death in the parking garage of a Boston airport, and now there's an international manhunt for the man responsible as he quickly boarded a flight to Kenya. This is Maggie Mbitu. She was a 31-year-old nurse who was last seen alive leaving her job at around 11 p.m. on October 30th of this year. She was finishing up her shift in Boston and then was planning to get ready for an upcoming girls' trip to Vegas. But when she didn't show up for work the next day, her employer immediately knew something was wrong. Her job as a nurse was extremely important to her, and she would never no-call no-show. So Maggie's employer reached out to her family, who then contacted the police to officially report her missing. Somehow, information that police collected led them to Kevin Kangete, who knew Maggie. When authorities tracked Maggie's cell phone records, they found that her phone was in the same vicinity as Kevin's SUV, which was located via license plate recognition cameras. They then tracked his SUV to the Logan Airport parking garage, and this is when they discovered a gruesome scene. There in the front passenger seat of Kevin's car was Maggie's body. She had been slashed and stabbed to death with severe wounds on her neck and face. Authorities began looking for Kevin, and with security footage provided by the airport, he was spotted entering the airport terminal and boarding a flight. It was then discovered that Kevin had purchased a ticket to Kenya the morning before Maggie's body was found. As of right now, Kevin remains on the run and has fled the country, but police are working with authorities in Kenya to locate him. And it's reported that Kenya does have an extradition treaty with the US. Maggie was the youngest in a family of nurses, and she worked as a nurse for about 7 years. She was described as warm and caring, and she absolutely took pride in her job. She was a woman who loved to travel, and she was just looking forward to spending some time with her friends on a girls' trip. I've attached a GoFundMe in my bio for Maggie's family to help with expenses during this horrific time. Please consider donating or sharing, and please keep Maggie and her family in your thoughts. Justice for Maggie Mbitu.
Pastor having, just a regular Sunday service, and you hear a demon in the crowd screaming while the prayers is going on.
Cat, no way.
I'll show you right now.
In the name of Jesus. I need Pastor Phil to come out here for just a second. Come on. It's okay, Brian. Keep playing. It's okay. Keep playing. It's all right. This is how real this is, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay. It's all right. In the name of Jesus, mercy, grace. I pray for my sister that she would know she's not alone. She's not alone. We pray in the name of Jesus, God. The name that can break every chain.
Obviously, sometimes when you start praying and shit, demons obviously don't fucking like it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what happened. Maybe something was like...
I can't get enough of Higgsfield AI. This app called Real Magic is seriously a game changer. Imagine creating ready-to-watch video content from just one text prompt and no other video tools needed, all from your phone. It's perfect for everyone from Hollywood filmmakers to content creators like me. The customization is next level, and I love how easy it is to use. No fancy equipment or skills. Just open the app, type in your idea, and let Real Magic do the magic. If you're looking to create incredible content, then trust me, this is it. Download Real Magic now and bring your imagination to life. Also, the video you're about to watch was made with just one prompt and no editing at all.
I need to see you as you really are.
You're not ready. Just
Show me, goddamn.
try to understand this.
Hello, Jack. What happened?
You're in Phobos Station, 25 Sector.
That's hundreds of light years off our course.
Yes, it is, but hey, at least there's a friendly face here.
This pedophile hunter was shot and killed, bringing a tragic end to his heroic hunt.
This is Robert Wayne Lee II, otherwise known as Bupak Shakur. Before his death, Robert was an infamous online personality who frequently posed as a 15-year-old girl to lure in pedophiles. He would then expose these pedophiles, blast their names and information out, and he was really working to show the community that he lived in just how these people operate, how many of them are out there, and how dangerous they can be. Well, on September 29th, 2023, the unthinkable happened. At around 10:23 p.m. that evening, Robert walked into a restaurant called the Universal Coney Island in Pontiac, Michigan. It's unknown exactly to this day why Robert was in there, but according to security camera footage, when Robert walked inside, there was already an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old waiting to meet him. Now, at one point, security camera shows Robert actually approach these two in the booth that they were in and start confronting them. And at around this same time, the 16-year-old that was seated in that area pulled out a semi-automatic handgun, right after his friend pulled out a knife, and the 16-year-old then opened fire, killing Robert. The 16 and 18-year-old then fled the scene, leaving Robert to die. Now, after Robert, or Bupak, was killed, his loss was felt all over social media, and people even went to the restaurant where the shooting occurred and left tributes and memorials to him. Definitely sad to see someone's story end like this, especially when you consider all the good that they put out into the world and their time and effort spent hunting down these vile individuals. It's still unknown exactly why the shooting happened, if it was connected to one of his stings or not, but R.I.P. Bupak Shakur. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.
There's a horrific murder case that's happening right now out of Arizona that's still unsolved. Let's talk about what happened to Mercedes Vega. On April 16th of this year, Mercedes was abducted from the parking garage of her Tempe, Arizona apartment and brutally killed. That night, security footage shows her walking into her apartment's parking garage a little after 9 p.m. She was on her way to meet her friends and have a fun night at Dave & Buster's, but in this footage, she had no idea what was about to happen to her. Sometime before making it to her car, she was attacked and taken by at least 2 people, and the details that follow are still a mystery. A little after 1 a.m. the next morning, the Department of Public Safety was called in to investigate a car that was on fire along the side of Interstate 10 in Tonopah. Upon arriving to the scene, they found Mercedes' burned body in the back seat, and she was deceased. In the last few hours of her life, she was tortured, and according to the medical examiner, she had been shot in the arm, had blunt force trauma to her head, and had traces of bleach in her throat. But all of this did not kill her. She ultimately died from smoke inhalation while being burned alive in that car. Investigators also found gloves and bleach in the front seat and lighter fluid in the back, but there are still a ton of questions that remain in this case, and nothing about this makes any sense. The car that Mercedes was found in was not her car. Her car, which was a 2019 Dodge Charger, was found abandoned near Mill Avenue in Tempe. She was not burned in her own vehicle, and so far, investigators still don't know who the car she was found in belongs to. One of the big questions in this case is, how did her car get from her apartment to where it was found? And who drove the other car to Tonopah? Mercedes' parents believe that this was a targeted attack and that death wasn't the ultimate goal, but that Mercedes fought back, which resulted in her death. Her parents mentioned that she danced at a club 2 nights a week, and many question if her death could possibly be connected back to someone she met while at work. It's now been 7 months, and Mercedes' murder is still unsolved. Whoever committed this vicious attack is still out there. Right now, there is a silent witness award of up to $2,000 for information leading to an arrest. But if you'd like to donate to up that reward or to report a tip, please contact the number on the screen. For more information on this case and to show your support, please follow this account that was created for Mercedes that's run by her family. She and her family deserve justice.
When her dad went to work one morning, this little girl vanished with nothing but a swimsuit and a towel. What happened to Trudy Appleby? It was 1996 in Moline in Illinois. Trudy Appleby was just 11 years old. She was last spotted in the driveway of her home in East Moline on the 21st of August 1996. It was roughly between 9:30 and 10 in the morning. Now, Trudy's dad had left the home roughly about half an hour earlier to go to work. It was a neighbour who made the last known sighting of the little girl. They saw her getting into a grey 4-door car with a white male who was wearing a baseball cap. When Trudy's dad arrived home later on that day, he was alarmed to find his child was nowhere to be seen. He immediately called police and the hunt was on. Now, Trudy had apparently not been forced into the vehicle by the looks of things, but seemingly took a swimsuit and towel with her in a bag. It's believed she had asked her dad that morning if she could go swimming, and he said no. Now, her home wasn't visible to a busy road or anything like that, so is it possible that the abductor made plans to pick her up? She left roughly $200 in savings behind, which leads investigators to believe that she didn't intentionally run away. So who were the suspects in this case? One of Trudy's dad's friends, called Ed Smith, was certainly a very likely suspect. He became prime suspect in 2017, years and years later. His son-in-law, David Whipple, lived across the road from Trudy. Ed was obviously familiar with Trudy due to knowing her dad. He would also potentially know that her dad was due to go to work that day. A witness at the time, which reportedly was that David Whipple, had seen Trudy in Ed Smith's car, and he said Ed had threatened to kill him if he told anyone. He also very suspiciously had his car scrapped less than a week after Trudy had vanished. This could very well have been him trying to conceal evidence. However, some theorize that this witness, David Whipple, could have been involved. Disturbingly, he was a registered S offender. As this happened in the early 90s, Ed Smith had actually since passed away. Some think David may have been involved in some way and used Ed as a bit of a scapegoat after he died. He had tellingly refused to cooperate with police immediately after Trudy's disappearance. Now, the Charlie Project website does state that Trudy's dad believes that Ed and David may both be involved. Could they have taken her out on a boat trip, hence the swimming costume? Now, Trudy was apparently friends with one of David's kids, and they would regularly go out on a boat together. Then in 2020, a third person of interest was identified. This was Jamie Fisher. Now again, he was involved with Ed Smith. He was a friend of the family, and investigators wonder whether Jamie had helped cover something up. In May 2021, Jamie was given 2 years in prison after stealing a car. He may be released in 2026. Frustratingly, David Whipple died in August 2022, aged 61. Tragically, Trudy's case remains unsolved.
This is the video that's going viral right now, showing the Llorona, and it was posted by a random account on TikTok. It was from this guy, his name is Oscar Martinez. I'm guessing from a security camera that he has. You can see the dogs barking, and then as soon as they heard the cry, they started howling, crying as well.
Whoa, what the fuck? My eyes are tearing right now, bro. I'm not gonna lie, that's one of like the craziest Llorona videos I've seen in a while.
That's what I'm saying, bro. When I saw it, the dogs are the most convincing part,
yeah, of
bro.
course, yeah.
And plus, like, it looks like it's just like gliding, bro.
Yeah, I think it's real.
Let us know in the comments if you guys think that video is real or not.
One night, a girl named Ava wanted her friends to sleep over. She asked her parents, but they said no. Ava begged and begged, but her parents weren't changing their minds. Ava was extremely mad and then said to her parents, "I wish you both were dead," and then ran off to her room. That night when she was sleeping, she had a dream her parents died in a car crash. Ava was devastated. She then woke up screaming and sweating. She felt terrible for what she said to her parents earlier and went to their room to wake them up, but they were not there. She began to panic and look around, but she couldn't find them anywhere in the house. She then heard footsteps coming from downstairs and she ran down to see, only to find a man holding a big bloody butcher's knife with her mom and dad lying dead behind him, cut open. Ava screamed and tried to run, but the man caught her. He was way too strong and fast for her. Ava was crying and screaming and couldn't believe her mom and dad were dead. The man then looked at Ava and said, "I was hiding in your house today. I heard you say to your parents, 'I wish you were dead.' So I granted your wish. Remember, little girl, be careful what you wish for."
Pedophiles in Japan are a major problem. We need to talk about this. So something I didn't realize was that CP or CSAM was 100% legal in Japan until 2014. That's right, it was completely legal until 2014. So that's disturbing, but we need to talk about JK Alley or Schoolgirl Alley in Tokyo. Basically, this is an alleyway in Tokyo where minors, girls that are actually all underage, sit along the street and offer their time to strangers for money. Men can go pay these girls to hold their hands and go for a walk, go for a cup of coffee. And keep in mind, all of these girls are legitimately under 18 years old, and they volunteer to do this. Men can even pay to go sleep in a girl's lap. And in some bars, you can take an underage girl dressed as a schoolgirl in there, pay around 35 pounds, and you can sit there with that girl of your choice for 40 minutes and have unlimited booze. In some of these cafes, the men actually pay for what's called walking dates, meaning that they take these girls out on 40-minute and hour-long walks. And it's unknown what they do during these walks, but the girls are basically allowed to do anything. It's up to them and the client. And all of this is completely legal. In 2018, it was estimated that 5,000 minors worked on this street and in these cafes. And all of these children aren't just cosplaying schoolgirls, they are actually minors who are in high school. I mean, this is really incredibly disturbing stuff. And then we can get into something called chaku arrow, which is known as a suggestively clothed soft corn. And there is no age limit in producing this material. In fact, one producer of these photos and videos who was interviewed by the BBC said, "My youngest was 6 years old. This is a quote. We filmed her in her bathing costume playing with some toys. Her mom was standing behind the camera holding her favorite toys so she would face the camera." The producer then said that the DVD he produced and sold of the 6-year-old made him around 35,000 pounds. And he said that senior high school girls make around 7,000 pounds. Now, all of this stuff is extremely incredibly disturbing. Everything that I've covered is. But it's all legal in Japan. I just wanted to spread some awareness here and tell you guys about this because I could not believe when I read it that up until 2014, CSAM was completely legal in Japan. I mean, what the hell? And if you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to my podcast, Murder in America, that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now that everybody should be talking about. This is Nancy Ng. She went missing during a yoga retreat to Guatemala last month. The details in this case are bizarre because it involves a whole group of people who basically witnessed Nancy go missing, yet most of them refused to talk to authorities. So on October 14th, Nancy left her home in Monterey Park, California to go on a week-long yoga retreat to Lake Atitlan. This would have been her second year in a row doing this, and it was just something that she was really excited about because she loved the area and it was supposed to be just really relaxing. But just a few days into the trip, the organizer of the retreat called Nancy's family and told them that she disappeared. She was officially reported missing on October 20th, but the few details that we do have are really strange. Nancy was seen for the last time in this video, which was taken on October 19th. She was paddling on a kayak on Lake Atitlan and happily waving to someone off camera. She was with a group of 9 other tourists who traveled to Guatemala for the retreat as well. Nancy was last seen splitting up from the group with another woman to continue kayaking up the lake. According to that woman, the two paddled for roughly another mile before Nancy jumped into the lake and either drowned or disappeared. The woman said she then paddled back to the group, where they then all went back to the hotel where they were all staying and notified management. And when the hotel staff searched for Nancy and couldn't find her, that's when they called the police to report her missing. But this is when things start to get strange. According to the kayak company, who recently made a statement, all 9 of the other tourists in that retreat returned home the day Nancy disappeared. They all reportedly left the lake without saying a word, and they all checked out of the hotel within 12 hours and never paid for the excursion. On top of that, almost all of the witnesses in that retreat group have chosen not to come forward and talk with police. They never gave any witness statements, and they haven't been forthcoming with any information, which has severely hindered the investigation. Guatemalan officials searched the lake and Nancy's hotel room, but they suspended the search after just 3 days after finding no evidence. According to them, the weather made it difficult and affected the search. They believe Nancy drowned that day, and because there's no sense of any urgency to continue looking for her, this forced Nancy's family to hire an independent search and rescue team called Black Wolf Helicopters. They've been the only ones to extensively search the lake and surrounding areas for any clues as to what may have happened to Nancy. They've searched 95% of Lake Atitlan using helicopters, boat teams, and divers. But Nancy is still missing, and because not really anyone in the group is coming forward to talk with police, they stated that it should now be considered a criminal investigation. The woman's identity, who was last seen with Nancy, has not been released to the public that I can find, but according to Nancy's family, they know who she is, and they've even tried reaching out to her multiple times for some answers. Yet that woman has refused to speak with them. And what's also strange is that this woman reportedly told Guatemalan officials that Nancy drowned that day, but that witness statement is nowhere in the official police report. So at this point, with no one coming forward and suspicious witnesses with key information that's being withheld, nobody knows what to think. The FBI is now investigating Nancy's disappearance, and her family has since hired a lawyer in Guatemala to investigate whether or not she actually drowned. Unfortunately, Black Wolf helicopters have since had to suspend their search, but they're demanding that someone in the group come forward to at least tell them where Nancy went into the lake, because it would be incredibly helpful to at least have a starting point. This situation is an absolute nightmare. I've attached a GoFundMe created for Nancy's family to help them continue funding the search, because as of right now, most of the search and rescue operations have been primarily funded by them, which is not fair at all. Any funds raised will go towards the search as well as travel expenses for the family, as they're wanting to be in Guatemala as much as possible. It's now been 3 weeks since Nancy went missing. It's time to find her.
Fyre Festival 2 is happening next year, apparently, so let's talk about Fyre Festival because that was wild. Pablo Escobar's private island, private jets, and the most luxurious and exclusive music festival you could have ever imagined. That's what people were promised. The reality of the ill-fated Fyre Festival couldn't have been more different. So let's talk about what actually happened at Fyre Festival, and I've gone into loads more juicy details on the podcast The Bourne Investigation. In 2013, Billy McFarland founded a company called Magnesis. It was an exclusive members-only club, and this is how he met Ja Rule. They built another business together called Fyre Media. In order to promote this business, which was effectively like a talent booking app, they decided to put on a music festival. They got a bunch of influencers involved, like Hailey Baldwin, Kendall Jenner, etc., to promote this festival, and it was really successful in promoting it. Tickets started flying off the shelves. The tickets were so expensive though. Some promised private yachts, a full crew included, and private chefs. Some tickets were like $25,000 per person. The team ended up booking talent like Major Lazer and my favourites Blink-182 to perform at the festival. However, the island that they planned to host this event on had less than ideal infrastructure. The Wi-Fi was sketchy, loads of things started going wrong, Billy fired the catering company. It just turned into a bit of a mess. They also spent a lot of money. There were rumours that they had already spent $4 million on just booking the artists alone. Money was running out and they started to realise that they'd overpromised. There weren't adequate toilet facilities, let alone enough food and water to feed everybody that was attending. Time and money was running out, and in order to try and pull this off, Billy decided to try and just squeeze more money out of people who'd already bought tickets. Even though they only had these like leftover hurricane disaster relief tents for these people, not the luxury villas that they'd been sold, the team sent out emails baiting the partygoers into loading more money onto what they called a fire band, which was like Apple Pay kind of. It was to basically make it a cashless experience. On the 27th of April, just the day prior to the event, Blink-182 pulled out. People started sensing things were going wrong. The following day, though, it was showtime and it turned into pure mayhem. At 7:40 a.m, Fyre Festival tweeted, "We're currently working through the unexpected start to Fyre Festival. Thank you for bearing with us as we attempt to accommodate guest needs." They then tweeted stating that due to circumstances beyond their control, inbound flights have been cancelled. Unfortunately, though, loads of people had already turned up on the island. Cue the confusion and chaos. People who attended the festival said that when they showed up, there was just absolutely no information, nobody telling them where they should go. Meanwhile, the campsite was absolute horror. It had chucked it down with rain on the lead up to the festival, so everything had got completely soaked. Hours and hours later, as the sun was going down, Billy McFarland stood on a table and basically just told everyone it was a bit of a free-for-all. He said no matter what ticket you purchased, you need to just go and run and grab a tent. So that's what people did. People were pushing and shoving and just acting like animals, to be honest, and scrambling to get their luggage and tents. This tweet of a cheese sandwich went viral, which just absolutely summed up the entire festival. It really made me laugh because the caption was moaning about how awful the food was, and it does look looked like an awful cheese sandwich, but part of the caption was moaning that there was no salad dressing, and I just thought the salad dressing is the least of your concerns. Organisers cancelled the festival, but it was too late for a lot of people that were already there and were now stranded on an island. There weren't enough flights to accommodate taking everyone home straight away, and many people were locked in the airport with no food or water. I think the sad thing about Fyre Festival is the local people who were really taken advantage of and put so much time and effort into trying to make this festival happen, and they ended up not getting paid, and in some instances had even spent their own savings to try and cover some of the funds. Days after the festival concluded, a $100 million lawsuit was filed against the Fyre team. They were accused of fraud amongst other things. Billy was arrested in June 2017 for wire fraud. Now, he was let out on bail, but he didn't stop there. He helped create a scheme called NYC VIP Access, which promised to sell these people discounted tickets to the Met Gala and Taylor Swift meet and greets. They didn't have these tickets to sell. In 2018, Billy was given 6 years in prison and was released in 2022. Now, shockingly, he's now out and is promising a Fyre Festival 2 in 2025. I can't wait to see what happens with this. Now, I know that Billy has done a lot of things wrong, and it is really sad for the local people, and I feel really bad for these people who have been scammed by this man. However, there's just something really likeable about Billy McFarland. I can't quite put my finger on it. I feel maybe this is why people get so charmed by him, because he is a likeable character, even though he's done a lot of things wrong. Like I said, I go into a big deep dive on my podcast about this, so please head over there if you're interested.
However, according to the phrase, you can't make this stuff up, might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair. No one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
Morbid Animal Facts, Part 2. If you ever get bitten by a Brazilian banana spider, be prepared for an erection that lasts for hours. Dolphins are intelligent enough to commit suicide, and the dolphin from the movie Flipper actually did this by swimming into her trainer's arms and holding her breath. Camels have specifically evolved canine teeth for the sole purpose of biting off the testicles of other camels. Lobsters pee out of their faces. Male Tasmanian devils break into females' homes, hold them hostage, and refuse to leave until they mate with them. Orcas are apex predators, meaning they're at the top of the food chain. They quite literally hunt great white sharks, rip them open, and eat their livers. Basically, they don't like the way skin tastes, so if they see a baby penguin, they catch it, deglove it, and eat it like a tube of toothpaste.
Can you tell a place has a dark past just by looking at it? This is part of a series where we look at listings of homes that have tragic backstories. In June of 1996, Darlie Rudier called 911 claiming that someone had broken into this home and attacked her family. Her 2 youngest sons suffered fatal stab wounds, while she herself suffered superficial cuts and bruises as well as a deep cut on her neck. But upon arrival to the house, the cops immediately felt like the scene had been staged. And though they had this beautiful home, a quick investigation showed that the family had been in deep financial stress. Just 12 days after she had made the 911 call, Darlie was arrested for the murder of her 2 sons. She's currently on death row in Texas, but one thing has always struck me as bizarre about this case. People have assumed that the motive was to cash in on her son's life insurance policies. But the entire family was home during the attack, including her husband and other child who were upstairs. The life insurance policies of Darlie's 2 sons only totaled $10,000, while her husband's totaled $800,000. And to me, that motive just doesn't add up.
This is what we know about the 4 Idaho students who were murdered in their house. On November 13th at 12 p.m., 4 University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death in their beds in a home that they shared. The victims were 20-year-old Ethan, 21-year-old Kaylee, 21-year-old Madison, and 20-year-old Zaina. Just a few hours before Madison and Kaylee were murdered at 1:40 a.m., they were seen on surveillance grabbing some food from a food truck in downtown Moscow. They then took an Uber home, and at around 3 to 4 a.m., their lives were taken. Ethan and Zaina, who were a couple, also arrived to the home around the same time as Kaylee and Madison. There were also 2 other students in the home while the murder took place, but they were not harmed, and they said they did not hear anything. These students in the home were also not the ones who called 911, but police will not release that information. Police do believe that this was a targeted and isolated attack, but they do not have any suspects at the moment. In my opinion, I think there's a lot more to this story, and I hate to say it, but these attacks seem really random, and this may be a serial killer.
This true crime case is extremely distressing, so please be warned before watching. Devin Michaels, a 45-year-old woman from Nevada, has been charged with murder. This came a week after 47-year-old Jonathan Willett was found deceased in a home without his head. It was actually Jonathan's mother who had discovered him lying on a bed next to bottles of ammonia and bleach. His mum also discovered that a meat cleaver from the house was missing. Distressingly, Jonathan was actually the father of Devin's children. He owned a moving company in Las Vegas and was known to locals as the Vegas moving guy. Devin states that the day in question, Jonathan had been abusive to her. He had allegedly tried to SA her and she hit him with a stick. She insists that she didn't intend to kill him but to injure him and get him out of the way. She reports that she wanted to get rid of him for a while she figured out what to do with the children. She said she had hoped that he was just injured enough to go to the hospital. Jonathan's actual cause of death is still currently unknown, but it is alleged that Devin threw Jonathan's head in the rubbish and this was likely taken away by the bin men.
I love to talk about dark Disney cover-ups, and one is happening as we speak. A woman is currently suing Disney for injuries she received on a waterslide in the park in 2019. But all of the headlines are describing her injury as a serious wedgie, when in reality, this is what happened to her. I don't have to say it out loud, but her insides were coming out of her when she got off that waterslide. So this happened on the Humunga Cowabunga waterslide. It's a 214-foot drop, and you go so fast that it's recommended you cross your legs because the force from the water can really mess up your nether area. And that's what this woman did, but at a certain point she became airbound and it caused her legs to uncross. When she came back down, the water supercharged into an area that water is not supposed to go. And when she stood up, she was gushing blood from internal injuries and had to be rushed to the hospital. But what does Disney want you to think happened? This woman got a wedgie and is trying to sue poor little innocent Disney for money. But this is my favorite part. The article also mentions other times that the park has tried to cover up serious injuries. So you can see here that in 2005, a teenage girl who claimed in a lawsuit she had a stroke on Disney World's Tower of Terror, and Disney wrote that she just fell ill. And there was also a time at Universal where a boy's foot was crushed on E.T.'s Adventure and they listed it as foot pain. Anyways, this is your daily dose of media literacy.
It was not a crime of passion. It was not a crime that was committed because he felt rejected by her. It was not done in a fit of uncontrollable anger. There was no reason. There was no purpose. It was done for no other reason than to satisfy this defendant's internal desire to feel what it was like to kill someone.
Aiden Fucci was finally sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 13-year-old Tristan Bailey on May 9th, 2021. Tristan's body was found in the woods on Mother's Day, hours after she was reported missing. She was stabbed 114 times by Aiden just because he wanted to know what it felt like to take someone's life. When Aiden was put in the back of a police car, investigators found a Snapchat post he uploaded of him smiling. Aiden's girlfriend at the time and his friends told investigators that he often talked about killing others, but they never took him serious. They also said that he did talk about taking someone random into the woods and stabbing them, which is exactly what he did to Tristan. Now, get this, Aiden's mother was even arrested after they found surveillance footage in their home of her washing the jeans that he wore on the same day that he attacked Tristan. But I must say, it was so hard to watch Tristan's mother give her victim impact statement. I literally cried my eyes out. And his case will be reviewed again in 25 years. His Discord friends tracked him down after he murdered his entire family. On July 2019, 24-year-old Menhaz Zaman murdered his entire family before they could find out that he dropped out of school. His family believed that he was studying engineering at York University in Toronto, but little did they know that he had been lying for 3 years. On this day, Menhaz sent a message to a group of friends on Discord saying that he was gonna murder his entire family. One by one, Menhaz shared photos of his family, first his mother, then his grandmother, then his sister, then his father, and they were all deceased. He then played video games and took a nap while his friends online were figuring out whether this was real or fake. But after his online friends shared these gruesome photos with other people, they realized that he actually did murder his entire family. After some digging, his online friends found his IP address and realized he was from Toronto. They then contacted Toronto police and they quickly found Menzah's address and went to his house. When
When police arrived to the home, Menhaz sent his last message to the group chat and he said, "Police are here, goodbye." The bodies of his entire family were lying around the house, and he confessed that he did this because his graduation was approaching and he didn't want his family to feel ashamed that he didn't finish school. The autopsies revealed that Menhaz struck each one of his family members with a crowbar and then cut their throats. Menhaz was sentenced to life in prison and is eligible for parole in 40 years.
I became a mother at the age of 5, becoming the youngest mother in the world. You'll never believe how old the father is. Hi, I'm Lena Medina. Here's my heart-wrenching story. In 1933 in Chicago, I was a 5-year-old girl like any other, until the unbelievable happened. Doctors discovered I was pregnant. They were astounded, trying to unravel this mystery. I had barely started my life, and now I was about to become a mother. This shocking news traveled around the world, sparking curiosity in everyone. A pregnancy at 5 years old, it was unheard of. 10 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. The press and scientists were baffled by this incredible event. My story created a global sensation. Everyone wanted to understand how this was possible. The medical explanations regarding my early pregnancy were scarce and complex, tied to hormones and early physical development. But the most shocking part, the father of the child was older than my own father. He was arrested after my son's birth, accused of wrongdoings, but released a few days later due to lack of evidence. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want to discover other incredible stories, follow us.
This woman's husband was kidnapped and murdered in what police believed was a random attack. Samantha Walford was a small-time YouTuber, but she wasn't getting as many subscribers as she wanted, so she decided to create her own real-life true crime story. Samantha met Ernie in 2008 in a tattoo shop in Texas. She was already a mother of 2, and the couple then went on to have 3 of their own children. In February 2015, Samantha called her mother and told her that Ernie had been kidnapped after 3 men broke into their home, and that she was tied up and terrified. The police soon found Ernie's dead body in some woodland, and he'd been shot in the head. Samantha told police that 3 masked men had broken into their home, beaten and taken Ernie, and that they'd tied her up and gagged her. Police weren't buying Samantha's story, and when they asked her how she'd managed to call her mother if she was tied up, she said that she'd unlocked her phone and dialed her mother's number using her face. And when the police questioned why she hadn't called 911 instead, she said that she'd just dialed the first number that came up on her phone. Investigations soon led to 3 men that Samantha had been messaging, and her lies unravelled. She'd hired these men, saying that Ernie was abusive and he needed to be taught a lesson. She first said that they'd just intended to scare Ernie, but that the 3 men had decided it would be easier to just kill him. All 3 men were arrested along with Samantha. The 2 men on the right were sentenced to 50 years each. The man at bottom left was sentenced to 93 years, and Samantha was sentenced to 99 years. Murdered by his Dharma-obsessed uncle, 4-year-old Prince was the victim of his uncle's dark obsession with murder. This tragedy happened just last week in the Philippines. Prince was playing with his cousins at their home when he went missing. They were all being watched over by Prince's 15-year-old uncle Patrick, and when he was questioned, he said that he didn't know where Prince had got to, and the family filed a missing persons report. Patrick is a big fan of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. He'd watched true crime documentaries on him and researched him online. On the day that Prince went missing, Patrick had changed his name in a group chat with friends to Jeffrey Dahmer, and he'd then sent pictures of his lifeless nephew to that group chat with a message. The message said, "I have done something that I deeply regret, and I now need to do my best to make up for it. I let my intrusive thoughts win, and I now need to face the consequences." 2 days went by with no sign of Prince, and then Patrick's mum noticed a foul smell coming from a room upstairs where they kept a disused washing machine. When she opened that washing machine, she found the brutalised body of 4-year-old Prince. He died from multiple blunt force trauma injuries to the head. When she questioned Patrick, he immediately said that it was him that had killed Prince, and she took him to the police. Due to Patrick's age, he won't actually be put on trial until he turns 18, when he can be tried as an adult. The maximum sentence for murder in the Philippines is 40 years, and Prince's family said that they want Patrick to be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
This is one of the most sickening, disturbing cases I've ever heard. In February 2010, Jennifer Dougherty went to a sleepover at her friend Angela's house. 6 people were going to be there who she had recently made friends with at a community centre in Greensburg. She was actually really pleased to make these friends, as she was described as mentally disabled and she found connecting with people really challenging. The friends were Angela and Ricky, who was her boyfriend, Amber and Melvin, who were expecting a child together, and Peggy and Robert. Little did Jennifer know that Angela was getting very jealous of her. She believed her boyfriend Ricky was trying to flirt with her. It's believed that Ricky had actually spoken on the phone to Jennifer about how he loved her. Angela therefore devised a plan and got the whole group involved. Before heading to the sleepover, Jennifer left her mum a really sweet note. She said, "I hope that you will have a good day at work, and also I love you very much." As soon as she walked through the door of Angela's apartment, she was beaten with a towel rack, a crutch, and a vacuum cleaner. Then a horrific 36 hours of torture took place. They shaved Jennifer's head and covered her in nail varnish. She was forced to drink detergent, vegetable oil, and her own urine. They trampled all over her, stripped her, and gagged her. She was then SA'd by Melvin, and they burned her eyes with spices. They forced her to write a suicide note, and then they stabbed her in the chest, lungs, and across her wrists. They wrapped her body in Christmas lights, choked her, and then stuffed her into a bin. The following day, she was found deceased by a truck driver. Angela was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole, as she was 17 at the time. Ricky and Melvin were sentenced to death. Robert, Amber, and Peggy all got between 30 and 80 years in prison. Jennifer is remembered by her loved ones as not having a single mean bone in her body.
What is some of the crazy stuff people have confessed to as they're dying? Well, in this series, I'm going to read to you some of the craziest ones I could find. This story comes from a hospice nurse that was dealing with a patient who had fought in the Vietnam War. Early on in his treatment, she actually asked him if he had any siblings, and he mentioned that he did have a brother, but he passed away in Vietnam. He also had a wife who had previously passed away, and because of this, he didn't have a lot of people that would come visit him. The man had dementia, and the nurse said that at times it felt like he was digging deep into his brain to find moments from his life that he could describe to the nurse in vivid detail. So one night the nurse comes in, and the man is in really rough shape, like it looks like he's not going to make it through the night. And when she walks in, he starts beckoning her over, like, "Come here, come here, come here." So the nurse comes over, and the man begins to tell her that his brother wasn't killed by an enemy soldier in Vietnam. He had actually killed his brother. And not only that, but these men were twins. So when the brother died, the other one fully assumed his identity when he came back to the States. Meaning that when he came back from the war, he took his brother's entire life, including his wife. The man ended up passing away that night, and later on the nurse told his daughter what she had heard. And the daughter did not believe her at all, but then years later, she finds a handwritten confession from her father stuffed in a Bible.
This is 20-month-old baby Isaiah. Now do me a favor. Imagine for a moment that this is your daughter. Would you for any reason ever leave her home alone? I didn't think so. She, however, would. This is her 18-year-old mother, Verfi Cootie. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, and frankly, I do not care. Between the months of October and December of 2019, Verfi had left Isaiah home alone a handful of times, at least 5 times, with the longest period of time being 2 days. So 2 whole days, this baby is home alone to fend for herself. Now, on December 5th, 2019, Verfi decided she wanted to go out and celebrate her 18th birthday, even though baby Isaiah had been sick with the flu. Verfi had even canceled plans with the family because of Isaiah having the flu. I guess she was just like, I don't want to take her out because she's sick, which, okay, that's, that makes sense. It probably would be best not to bring the baby out with the flu. Instead of asking someone to watch Isaiah, Verfi goes to celebrate her birthday with her boyfriend, leaving Isaiah in the apartment. Once again, she goes 50 miles to London, and there she lives it up. On the 7th, this is 2 days after leaving Isaiah in the apartment, she was seen at a concert and even asked the DJ to give her a shout out for her birthday. So it would not be until 5, almost 6 days later that Verfi would return to the apartment. So this is when she initially left the apartment on December 5th, 2019, which was a Thursday at 5:40 p.m. This is her returning home on December 11th, 2019, which was a Wednesday at 3:38 p.m. So all this time, Isaiah is just in the apartment by herself. When Verfi gets back into the apartment, she finds Isaiah unresponsive. And this is when she feels like it's a good idea to go on social media and tell her family members that Isaiah is just not doing well. At this time, Isaiah had already passed away. It would be 2.5 hours before Verfi would finally contact emergency services. And that's when they come and take Isaiah to the hospital where she is pronounced deceased. So her cause of death was a combination of the flu as well as starvation. So just think about this. For exactly 5 days, 21 hours, and 58 minutes, this baby was by herself, sick with the flu, no food, no water, no milk, no one there to change her diapers, which resulted in a really bad diaper rash. Obviously, I know of children that have sat in diapers for even hours at a time and have gotten really bad rashes. So you can just imagine how bad this baby had to suffer. But it doesn't end there. And her mom is obviously arrested, rightfully so. She's a piece of trash. I'm sorry to say it. But in November of 2022, she pleads guilty to manslaughter and receives only 9 years. 9 years in jail for leaving her daughter home while she's out dancing and having a good time. 9 years, and this woman gets to live a free life while her baby doesn't get to live her life. I'm sure she will never have to suffer as much as this baby has had to suffer, but I hope that in jail, she feels just a little bit of that. I hope they don't treat her very well in there. And I definitely feel like she deserves more than 9 years.
Teenager's reaction to getting a life sentence.
That there is only one appropriate sentence in this case. Mr. Fucci, if you and your attorneys would please rise. Counsel, is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time? Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison. Because of your age, you are eligible for review of the sentence in 25 years.
Elisa Navarro has fled with a man named Eddie Davis. Images of them moving has surfaced online. Here's a couple things that I found really interesting about these pictures. One thing I noticed about this picture is if you look at Alicia, she seems happy, she seems like she's smiling, she seems like she's having a good time moving. From what I heard, I believe that she's still going to stay in Montana. Here's another thing that I noticed about the pictures, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does that over here look like a card seat? I mean, maybe that was already there, could be from another family member, right? But why is that here? Now, I know there were rumors saying that there was a baby, but I think those rumors are false. In this picture, you can kind of get a better look of how Eddie Davis looks like. And compared to her, I mean, she kind of still looks like she's 14 in my opinion.
20 years ago, my life changed dramatically in a way I never could have anticipated. And it was all the result of something as simple as offering to water my best friend's flowers. My name's Kara Robinson Chamberlain, and 20 years ago, I was kidnapped from my friend's front yard by a man that was a total stranger, and I found out later, a serial killer. This is my story, one piece at a time in my own words, and I'm telling it in this way to take ownership over it and to engage with you guys, give you the story, but also show you how much more there is to it and how much more you are, even if you've had bad things happen. So there are trigger warnings in this story. You have SA, you have kidnapping. So if at any point you're feeling triggered or you're feeling anxious, then please take a moment to take care of yourself and come back when and if it feels appropriate to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Do not watch this video unless you have a very strong stomach. This case and what this man did to his mum is truly sickening. On the 31st of August 2019, Margaret Sumney was unreachable. Her family just knew something was wrong. They tried and failed to get hold of her for 2 days before eventually ringing the police. The police conducted a welfare check on her in her house in Pennsylvania. What they discovered was horrifying. They found glass all over the floor and blood smeared on the walls of the home. They found the 67-year-old's body in the bathtub of the house. She'd been beaten to death. The autopsy revealed that she died from blunt force trauma to her head. Police interviewed her son David, who initially denied having anything to do with her murder. However, police searched his phone and found some horrific photographs. They uncovered 277 sickening images. These included David's selfies with his mum's dead body. In some, his face was smeared with her blood and he was doing a thumbs up pose. Police also discovered that David was in possession of some of his mum's jewellery and blank cheques. Now, he previously did have a record of assaulting his mother twice, as well as his now deceased father. The same year as his mum's murder, it was alleged that he waterboarded and strangled his ex-girlfriend in an Atlantic City hotel. He apparently slipped through the cracks in the police databases, allowing him to continue to offend. He was soon arrested and it was found that when he committed his mum's murder, he was taking a large amount of Adderall. His defence argued that due to the substances and alcohol in his system, he had diminished responsibility. Originally, he faced charges of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. However, he entered a guilty plea, so would only be charged with third-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison. Terrifyingly, as he's now been in prison since 2019 and due to his good behaviour behind bars, he may be released in just 17 years.
Alright y'all, you have convinced me. We are doing a SparkNotes story time. Buckle the fuck up. I have waited 7 years to tell this story and I sure as shit have receipts. This is not all of the evidence I have. I just pulled out the evidence that I think is appropriate for this video. So the month is December, the year is 2015. I turned 16 at the end of November, and I had at this point been physically, mentally, and sexually abused for several years, and my best friend was aware of it and had close personal ties with the perpetrator. I had recently got out of that situation, or so I thought, and so we were gonna hang out and go and hang out with a couple of our other friends, and we were going to smoke a little bit. The night before it all happened, she texted me and told me that I needed to look super hot and dress a certain way and whatever, and that we needed to lie to my parents about where we were going, which I was scared to do because it wasn't something that I had ever done before. She didn't let me leave the house until I looked completely different, and when we got to the place that we had lied to my parents and had her parents drop us off at, we walked over to our mutual friend's house to go and, you know, do our thing. Now, it is extremely normal for teenagers to experiment with things like smoking, drinking, etc. And honestly, that's all that this was to me. So we got to this guy's house and sat down. On the way there, she kept asking me, like, so you're gonna smoke, you're gonna do this, whatever. And I was like, yeah, because at that point I had already tried it many times before and honestly had years of experience under my belt. When we sat down on this guy's furniture, she just announced that she wasn't going to be partaking. And so he was like, okay, and lit up a water bottle bong, handed it to me and said, ladies first. I was like, all right. And I inhaled one hit. And I started coughing, and he was like, oh my God, I didn't expect you to be breathing it in that long. And I said, why? We've literally done this together for every weekend for the last few months. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he says to me, nothing, that's just some fire shit. I don't think you're prepared. That struck me as odd, and I started to get dizzy within like maybe 2-3 minutes, so I laid down. The next thing I remember is being assaulted, choked, beaten,
begging for them to stop, begging for them to call 911 until his mom came upstairs. And she said, this girl needs to get the fuck off of my property. She's gonna die here. You need to get her out. I didn't wait around. I quickly ran, and they followed me down the stairs, and my best friend said, Lexi, do you even know where you are? And that was the first time I realized that I wasn't dreaming. I'll make a part 2.
What? Nothing there, mate. Nothing there. What? There's nothing there.
How did this woman go from looking like this to looking like this?
This is the very heartbreaking case of Charla Nash. One day in 2009, Charla received a call from a friend. Her friend's pet chimpanzee named Travis had sadly escaped from the house and was running loose in the neighborhood. Now, Charla had known this chimp for years, and being as kind as she was, she offered to help lure the chimp back inside. Charla arrived at her friend's house, not suspecting the danger that awaited her. As she approached Travis, the chimp suddenly turned on her, and with a ferocity that is beyond belief, the 200-pound animal mauled her face and hands, causing devastating injuries. In a complete panic, Charla's friend made this call.
911, where's your emergency?
This is Katie. What's
What's
the
the problem?
police! Send the police!
What's the problem there?
The chimp killed my friend!
When police arrived on scene, the chimp was shot, and Charla was rushed to hospital where she underwent multiple surgeries, including a face transplant. Despite medical intervention, Charla did end up losing her hands, her eyes, and her nose in the attack. She was also left completely blind and disfigured. Now, this incident completely shook the community. It received widespread media coverage, ultimately raising awareness about the dangers of owning exotic pets. For more 7 Sin crime stories, remember to follow.